Tonight, 100 years memorializing Black Wall Street after the 1921 massacre that left hundreds of Americans dead in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Plus,
Catholic Social Services never actually had a same-sex married couple asked to foster a child.
the Supreme Court set to decide a major case over adoption and same-sex couples with far-reaching implications. And as we remember those who served this week after Memorial Day,
That's where the American story began, in prayer.
the opening prayer that began the Continental Congress in 1774 and set the precedent for religious liberty in America. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Shining the light on a dark stain in American history. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder.
I'm John Jessup. Tonight marks a somber anniversary 100 years ago when hundreds of Black Americans were killed and their homes and businesses destroyed by a mob of angry whites, an attack on the Greenwood district of Tulsa, Oklahoma.
It's become known as the Tulsa Race Massacre, and President Biden today traveled to Tulsa to mark the day. CBN News White House correspondent Eric Phillips has our top story. Eric?
Jenna and John, just to give some context here, back in 1921, the Greenwood area of Tulsa was known as the Black Wall Street. That's because though it was segregated by law, it was a booming area with thriving Black businesses, churches, and homes. The massacre wiped out just about all of that, and no one was ever held accountable.
I will never forget the violence of the white mob when we left our home. I still see Black men being shot, Black bodies lying in the street. I still smell smoke and see fire. I still see Black businesses being burned. I still hear airplanes flying overhead. I hear the screams. I have lived through the massacre every day.
107-year-old Viola Fletcher recently testified on Capitol Hill about living through the Tulsa Race Massacre. She was just 7 years old when she and her family fled their Greenwood home. Her brother, 100-year-old Hughes Van Ellis, also testified, the World War II vet becoming emotional.
I was there when it happened. I'm still here.
That's right. That's right.
My sister was there with she stood here.
It happened in the overnight hours of May 31st and June 1st of 1921. The event, sparked by a 19-year-old Black man allegedly assaulting a white teenage girl on an elevator, ended with the destruction of nearly 40 square blocks. A mob of 5,000 to 10,000 took out 200 Black businesses and killed upwards of 300 residents, leaving thousands homeless. No one was ever charged. The president went to Tulsa Tuesday to underscore the importance of those lives. A candlelight vigil in Tulsa and the dedication of a prayer wall there commemorated the anniversary. The hearing days before considered what legal actions could be taken to perhaps compensate victims and their families. Afterward, Congressman Hank Johnson introduced a bill that would make it easier for them to seek reparations instead of falling victim to statute of limitation restrictions. That is making its way through Congress.
I'm asking that my country acknowledge what has been happened to me.
We are not asking for his hands out. All we are asking for is for a chance to be treated like a first-class citizen.
In addition to the bill introduced in Congress, the three known survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre are also the lead plaintiffs in a lawsuit filed last year against the city of Tulsa and the state of Oklahoma. That's because some members of the mob, according to records, were actually deputized by law enforcement to do what they did. Unbelievable, John and Jenna.
All right, White House correspondent Eric Phillips. Thanks, Eric. Well, here with us now is Pastor Eric Costanzo, lead pastor of South Tulsa Baptist. Pastor Costanzo, thank you so much for being with us. The Oklahoman published a survey, the results of a survey that found 83% of mostly Oklahomans never learned about the Tulsa Race Massacre in school. I know you grew up in Tulsa. Pastor Costanzo, why is this little known in American history?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely accurate. And that was my own personal experience. I didn't learn about it, even though I grew up here my whole life, until I was in seminary. I didn't even learn about it in college here in state, and the seminary was out of state. And I think it's a combination of a few things. I think that for many years, people didn't want to remember, whether because there was guilt or there was some sense of, will we be held accountable? I think that even our African American community has said that for many years, many of them didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to relive it. They didn't want their children to grow up having that kind of animosity back towards the white community. And so I think that it just sort of got swept under the rug. And for many reasons, nobody really talked about it much, except just in maybe a passing comment.
And now, what's led you to get involved with the centennial planning, and how has the community rallied around this event?
You know, over 2 years ago, I was actually invited by the Centennial Commission to be a part of the planning, and really, the commission they did a great job of involving lots of community organizations, but also several churches. And so I got to represent my church and meet lots of other great pastors and other church leaders representing their churches. And for the vast majority of the time, everything has been focused on looking to the future. And, once the commemoration is over, which the commemoration is very important, but once the commemoration is over, that we would have better relationships across the city and especially among our churches, so that we can model unity in our community in a Christ-like manner, which the church ought to be able to lead the way in doing that.
As Eric mentioned in his package, Pastor Costanzo, white citizens were deputized to participate in that mob. I was reading also today that Black Tulsans and their mistrust of police actually kind of stems from that. In response, President Biden today called on Americans to recommit to the work of rooting out systemic racism across our country. What do you think he means by that? And what lessons do you hope Americans will learn as we find out more about what happened 100 years ago this past Sunday?
Well, I certainly wouldn't presume to speak for the intentions of the president and his comments. But I think that certainly what has been beneficial for me, especially in the 2+ years of getting to know our African-American pastors and churches more, is what it looks like to sit in a position of dialogue and to listen and to learn, but also to have a safe space to dialogue, which we've had. And we've been able to do that and discuss difficult topics like justice and racism and on all levels, to be able to have that kind of posture where it's not a hostile environment to talk about volatile topics. And so I think, certainly if we can foster more of that communication that involves listening, which seems to be a lost art for so many people, then the church will be playing a positive role in all this.
Yeah, absolutely. Pastor Eric Costanzo, lead pastor at South Tulsa Baptist Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, in other news tonight, the Supreme Court issued 2 unanimous decisions today. One in favor of allowing tribal police to stop non-Native Americans on tribal lands. The other affirming there's no presumption that the testimony of asylum seekers is credible.
But we're still awaiting a number of big rulings later this month, including one that pits a faith-based foster agency against LGBTQ advocates. Senior National Affairs correspondent Heather Sells reports.
The Supreme Court will decide the future of Philadelphia's Catholic Social Services Agency, which is asking to follow the church's teaching and not partner with same-sex or unmarried couples. It's a high-stakes religious liberty fight.
So what we are contending for in this case is that Catholic social services have an equal right to participate in the public square, and the way that they are participating in the public square is by serving the most needy amongst us, which are children without homes.
And the Supreme Court told us when they said that the Constitution requires same-sex marriage that, of course, the law will protect those who have a different view in their religious or their moral conscience. But in many cases, that's not happening.
But LGBTQ advocates like the Human Rights Campaign say the case is about discrimination, and a decision against the city of Philadelphia would open a, quote, Pandora's box for future discrimination. Andrew Walker, a professor of ethics at Southern Baptist Theological Seminary and a fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center, disagrees.
Discrimination implies locking people out, a class of people out from an entire industry, and that's not what's going on. What's going on in Fulton versus Philadelphia is you have one adoption agency that is wanting to operate according to its beliefs.
Catholic Social Services never actually turned away any gay couples, and there's dozens of Philadelphia foster agencies that work with them, so Regent Law Professor Brad Jacobs says they can't ultimately lose.
They can adopt either way. They don't need Catholic Social Services. This is on their part an effort to basically stamp out anyone who doesn't agree with their worldview.
Court watchers are closely watching the case with its hot-button issues in the hands of a new conservative majority.
We have a Supreme Court that is probably for the first time as pro-religious liberty in its design as it has been in perhaps the history of the Supreme Court.
The big question with Fulton is how broadly will the justices rule? They could revisit a 1990 case that decimated the free exercise of religion and provide a substantial win for people of faith. Or they could issue a narrow ruling which would do little to advance either side. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Thank you, Heather. And here with us now is Lori Wyndham, Senior Counsel at Beckett. Lori, thank you for being with us this evening. So we just heard Heather mention the 1990 Smith decision. How did that ruling affect the free exercise of religion in America?
Well, what happened was that after the 1990 decision, the lower courts really restricted what free exercise means. They say, well, if the government restricts your religious exercise, and it does so according to a neutral law, a law that applies across the board, well, then you don't have a recourse there. It's too bad your religious exercise is burdened. And that creates a real problem for Catholic Social Services and for the families who partner with it, because Philadelphia, wrongly, I believe, is saying, well, we just applied a rule to you, we'd apply it to others too, and so therefore you have no religious freedom rights here.
Lori, looking ahead or to this case, do you think the court will revisit the Smith decision?
You know, it's hard to say. The court had some questions about that in oral argument back in November. They signaled when they took the case that they were interested in revisiting the Smith decision. I'm really encouraged by some of the things the court has done recently, especially under COVID litigation, where they have adopted a standard, even under the Smith decision, that's a whole lot more friendly to religious exercise than what we have seen many lower courts use in the past.
So if the court does rule narrowly, what, Lori, does that mean for faith-based agencies moving forward?
Well, we're hopeful that even if the court doesn't revisit the Smith decision, they will still give us a framework for how it is you look at these questions about foster and adoption agencies. You know, it's not just Catholic Social Services in Philadelphia. We have agencies in Michigan and Texas and places across the country who are just trying to keep their doors open and continue serving children and serving families. And so what I hope the court gives us here is a blueprint for how we can resolve these disputes going forward.
All right, Lori Wyndham with Beckett. We appreciate your insights this evening, and it's a topic that we will continue to report on, and we hope you'll join us again sometime. Thanks, Lori.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Lori. Coming up, breaking the bank with President Biden's $6 trillion budget proposal. The battle it's setting up on Capitol Hill.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, to lead, just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Welcome back. Tonight, the Republican National Committee is launching a new ad campaign featuring Tim Scott.
A president who promised to bring us together should not be pushing agendas that tear us apart.
And the 30-second ad puts the South Carolina senator's rebuttal to the president's joint address to Congress at the forefront. According to the Washington Examiner, the seven-figure TV ad targeting President Biden's agenda portrays an off-year election push in which the RNC has already given $10 million to Republican senatorial and congressional committees.
Well, here now to discuss, CBN News Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, as you just heard, the Republican National Committee is charging hard against President Biden, already spending more on winning back both chambers of Congress than ever before in a non-election year. David, how important is 2022 for Republicans?
Well, it's everything. I mean, clearly the House and Senate hang in the balance, and every political prognosticator that I'm personally talking to say it's Republicans for the taking. As a matter of fact, if Republicans don't take back at least the House, it is going to be very, very disappointing. I mean, this is theirs, like I said, for the taking. So we wait to see. But yeah, of course, it's the ball game because it's going to obviously depend on control of the Senate and the House. And it just makes Joe Biden's path to legislation that much more difficult. And let's be honest. This is why Democrats are saying right now is the time to get rid of the filibuster, because they know that in 2022, Republicans have a very good chance of taking back the House, and then puff goes the magic filibuster. It's over at that point.
Yeah, history is certainly in Republicans' favor. David, what does an ad campaign like this one so early on do to bolster Senator Scott's rising star?
Well, look, I mean, this is obviously huge for Senator Tim Scott, but let's take it beyond Tim Scott for a moment. There is a reason the Republican National Committee is using this address by this senator. He's an African-American senator, the only African-American senator Republicans that's in the Senate right now, number one. Number two, and just as important is that message he delivered, the rebuttal to the State of the Union, even though it wasn't a State of the Union, but to Biden back in February or whenever it was, I got to tell you, it was remarkable. The Republican National Committee knows this. And remember, Biden is playing racial politics. He is. He's calling Republican policies Jim Crow type laws, Jim Crow 2.0. So if he's going to play that game, they're going to let everybody and American people know about Tim Scott's message coming from an African-American senator. So it's clearly political hardball time for sure.
David, the White House unveiled a soaring budget proposal for fiscal year 2022, totaling some $6 trillion in spending. Even if President Biden only gets a fraction of what he's asking for, it seems like the era of big government spending is here.
Well, a couple of things. One, he's going to get more than just a fraction of it, John. I mean, I think he's going to get a pretty decent chunk of it, number one. But you're absolutely right. The era of big government is over. It's been over for a while, I should say the era of big government is here, I should say. And it's been that way for a while. And you know who you can thank? Look, don't look at Biden. Don't look at Democrats. Look at the Republican Party. I mean, if Republicans are frustrated with big government, maybe they should start within their own party. I mean, they're the ones that were okay with trillions here and trillions there and stimulus checks there and stimulus checks everywhere. And why? Because the COVID crisis came and government felt they had a responsibility to do something, but it came even before COVID. So look, Republicans since George W. Bush have been building government up, as we like to say, the proverbial yin-yang. And for sure, that's been going on for a very long time. And, you know, not often you say yin-yang in a live shot, but there you have it.
All right, David Brody, it's always great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Have a great night.
Guys.
And when we come back, the opening prayer that proved to be a cornerstone for religious liberty in America.
Daddy,
Yeah, buddy.
how many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain, get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
And welcome back. Long before the first official Memorial Day, Americans have long honored those who defended and died for its causes, all the way back to the American colonies fighting against the British.
They would be led by men whose first business wasn't war, but prayer. Paul Strand tells us of their first coming together in Philadelphia and how it was under God.
Feeling the lash of British oppression, colonial representatives first met at Philadelphia's Carpenter's Hall in 1774. But no one was sure how to begin a Continental Congress. Firebrand Samuel Adams jumped in with a controversial proposal.
So let's open in prayer. Isn't that amazing? America is opened up with a proposal for prayer, and it begins with a debate over prayer. We can't pray.
Because historian Peter Lilback points out they were Catholics or Protestants from a wide array of denominations.
They never prayed together. They all thought they were from different religions. They thought we're biblical or we're true, and they're not.
Adams was a Congregationalist, basically a Puritan like those who under Oliver Cromwell fought a vicious civil war against England's Anglicans.
And the Puritans had chopped off the head of the Anglican Church. He's called Charles I the King.
But Adams made a revolutionary statement.
I can pray with any man who loves his God and loves his country. So here he is, a Congregationalist. And he says, I hear there's just such a man over in that church over there, the Anglican Church.
He proposed as pastor Jacob Duché open the Congress in prayer.
It was at that moment that Samuel Adams created the American ecumenical spirit, where in the public square we can walk over our denominational boundaries. Literally, if you will, he stepped over the aisle.
Duché came, but all dressed up in fancy priestly robes.
He came in his full pontificals, which meant he was really decked out with the very things that Puritans hated.
He held the Anglican Book of Common Prayer, which Puritans loathed. But then Duché began the reading set long ago for that day in the book. With a possible war looming, the Congress felt it was a totally prophetic moment, as the reading was from Psalm 35, about being loyal to an elder who suddenly betrays.
That we had been loyal to the mother country, and they're turning against us and harming us.
It started out, fight against them that fight against me. John Adams wrote his wife.
You would have thought in God's providence that was put into the Book of Common Prayer just for this day for us.
Duche's prayer then asked God for freedom from the rod of America's oppressor and ended in the name of Jesus Christ.
It's quite a remarkable moment that's where the American story began, in prayer, as opposite sides came together for a greater good in the name of Christ.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Carpenters Hall, Philadelphia.
Coming up, soldiers honoring their own, the special touch that made this year's Flags In ceremony even more special. Next.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to cbn.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Finally tonight, soldiers honoring soldiers at Arlington National Cemetery.
For the first time in 20 years, members of the Marines, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard joined soldiers from the Old Guard to honor the fallen this past Memorial Day.
It's an opportunity to both honor and remember them, and an opportunity for our soldiers to connect with those fallen heroes of our nation.
Members of the joint services use their own boot to measure the distance between the flag and the base of the headstone. The tradition allows soldiers to look at the individual's name and remember their service while inspiring the rest of us to do the same every day. A really special touch to this year's Flags In ceremony there.
Absolutely, and a special thank you to all of the men and women who have served our country.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for watching Faith Nation.
Have a great night.